Vinny Melkus Outdoors. It's been a while since I had a video. There's been some issues with myself. I've had a knee issue I was supposed to have surgery on, which that's turned into a big deal. At times, it's hard for me to stand on the front deck, so I haven't done any fishing videos. And then I pulled the muscle in my back where I couldn't even move my upper body or my arms hardly. So that's weird. It's finally getting better where I can do stuff. So I will be putting out some fishing videos. It's pained me that I've missed like the latter half of the spawn, but we'll get to it. Anyway, since I haven't been on the water and I haven't done anything, I'm giving you another update on the Lake Mead, Lake Powell, the Colorado River system situation. And we'll start off by going into the current water levels, which we right now are in probably the peak, if not hitting the peak, runoff portion of, inflows from snowpack. And we've seen it if you paid attention in southern Montana, all the flooding. That is kind of due to warm weather and warm rain impacting snow in the mountains. And it happens every couple of years. I've seen a flood that's maybe not quite that extensive, but a number of years ago, it flooded out a pond that potentially to me had the state record largemouth, and for Montana it flooded that out, and then it came back and there were still some really good bass in there, and then this time it's completely flooded out again. I don't know what those fish actually do. I know they usually survive that in that pond, and some of them get flushed out into the Yellowstone, so who knows. But there were some good largemouth in there and some just beautiful sunfish in some of those ponds, and they got flooded out near the river there. Anyway, okay, Lake Mead, their current level when I'm sitting here, this is as of yesterday, June 22nd. It's at 1,043.82. If we look at what it's been doing, it's actually been going down. But here's that should go up a little bit, but right now they're focused on Powell. They're focused on leveling Powell out to a certain extent. I know that there's been some reports that now there's some headlines on Mead about dead pull being within like 100 something feet. That is an alarming number for sure. And who knows what will happen in the next year. But anyway, so it's still been declining over the last, here it just pulls down the average, to June 9th, but it's been declining, a tenth of a foot, between a tenth and a 20th of a foot. That's Mead right now. But like I said, they're focusing on Powell. So I'm going to pull up Powell here. And this is where things kind of get a little more interesting, and what you're going to see push down the Mead probably in the future in order to stabilize Mead as well. So Powell's been going up since May, and it was at kind of a trough period where it's at 35.22. I've never even seen it that low. My grandpa, who's been fishing that lake since they put a dam in, he's never seen it this low. It's recently gone up to 35, 38, and that's with runoff. I got people in Colorado that have seen that the river is flowing pretty high, and usually it looks like it's peaked already, and that goes directly into Powell. Powell has been steadily raising, quarter of a foot a day for a number of days. But here's the deal with that. That's going to be kind of a fart in the skillet, so to speak. And here's why. So we're at peak runoff, or close to it, or if not already past it. Lake Powell's only at 35, 38. Here's the other thing that you might not know has been done. So there's been a consortium of Western states of kind of working with the federal government, trying to deal with the situation. So one of the things they did, and I've talked about this before, is they went to Blue Mesa Reservoir in Colorado, drained that down a little bit to put in the Powell. But here they're going to Flaming Gorge. Flaming Gorge is a reservoir on the border of Utah and Wyoming. Good smallmouth fishing, by the way. Burbot fishing, or we call them lean cod, walleye. Used to be historically trophy brown trout fishery too. There's still some good browns in there as well. Lake trout as well, and they're good lake trout fishery. Or used to be. I haven't gone up there to catch lake trout, or my grandpa used to when he was younger, but he's got some on the wall, some 30 pounders. Real nice, beautiful lake. They've dropped that thing. You can go to the chart on this. They've dropped it. It was supposed to be 10 vertical feet. which for that size of reservoir is significant, in order to release water down to Powell. And I believe that goes to the Green River or whatnot, into the Colorado. It escapes me right now. But anyway, the intent is to take that reservoir and hopefully use some of that water and put it into Powell. Well, that's happened. So that happened late May. So that water should be making its way into Powell. So we're probably seeing the peak for the year Powell. So what am I saying is that this whole drought thing, this whole low lake level is not like something's going to be cured overnight. This is going to take multiple years of good snowpack and water management. But on the fishing side of things, I'm reading on reports about Lake Powell, and we'll get into that. And that should be also, you can probably a little bit of indicative of what's going on in Mead to a certain degree. And let's get into that. So reading into some of the stuff we can see at Lake Powell, there's, Utah Division of Wildlife has some biologists that work on there. You can read some of the stuff off of like Wayne Gustafson, who used to be the head biologist, I believe, there. So they do surveys, and they've done the shad survey at Lake Powell from various places along the lake. Of course, this time of year you're used to seeing slurping, which is the shad larva, and the stripers will go up there, and they kind of look like carp almost. They're just up there just getting those little guys. But anyway, they do the surveys, and it actually didn't look that bad. And this goes back, and this is my theory, and I think they finally alluded to it, but they were denying it for a number of years. My theory is, now that you got the gizzard shad in there, which is supposed to devastate everything, now you got gizzard shad there, and in Mead itself and some other lakes, it actually reduces pressure off of threadfin shad during the times like this, because you can actually get gizzard shad that become large enough that they really don't have predators. Maybe like a giant striper, or maybe a super large bass or catfish or something. But for the most part, once they hit a certain size and they grow relatively fast, they're just there and they can spawn and reproduce. Whereas a threadfin, they can't do that once they maybe they get 4 or 5 inches, but they're still easy prey. And it used to be there'd be these cyclical booms and busts in Lake Powell, and Lake Mead for that matter. But you can really see it in Lake Powell, where the shad population just get devastated one year, and especially when you had lower water. And the spawn wouldn't be good. The stripers would go through them, and then they start attacking these other, crappie and bass fry and all this other stuff. So you had very cyclical fishery, and now we have the gizzard shad. It seems to have taken some of the pressure off these other fish. So that looks good. The larva survey, and I guess they'll monitor these as they go through different stages. And so Lake Powell looks fairly solid, even though it's at this water level. But on the other flip side of the coin, when we talk about certain species of prominence, let's say largemouth bass, for instance, when it comes to Lake Mead and Powell, when you have a water level that goes down this significantly, you start losing those prime, well, they can still spawn, but you start losing the prime rearing areas. What I mean by is when you get the fry and they've left the nest, places for them to hide out, and to get past that crucial stage of life to get on the next. So usually largemouth recruitment, in my opinion, will go down. There will be they're going to go down significantly, but comparatively to like a smallmouth walleye and all these other, and catfish or whatnot, that will do better with more lowering water levels. Once you get, though, over this next couple of years, if we do get water levels on the rise, this year and the next, the brush, tamarisk, or we always call them tamaracks, but tamarisk, all these other bushes start growing, and then hopefully in the subsequent years we get that water level to come back up. That's when you'll have the boom in the largemouth and the crappie. That's the other species I forgot. Crappie in particular usually need some kind of cover to hide from predators, especially when they're the fry and fingerling stage. But so crappie, largemouth are probably going to have the most significant impact of all this, whereas these other fish tend to do a little bit better, and even stripers do fairly well. even with this. Nothing seems, unless they run out of food, nothing seems to stop them in these bodies of water. I mean, I'm not saying the largemouth fishing is going to be terrible. It should be good. I'm just saying the recruitment of largemouth and is probably going to go down. The less pockets of huge amounts of largemouth will probably be a little more scattered than they normally would. But there are some giants. I mean, I know that you don't think Mead or Powell would have giant. I know there's some 10-pounders like in Powell. I've seen them, and they live in certain areas, and they hide out in the rock boulders. Probably some of them never seen a lure. But anyway, that's, so it's not all gloom and doom in these lakes, and there should be good fishing if you can get out there. Of course, I went over the last time. You can go over the ramps. You can look at all the ramp closures. Like, it's unbelievable. You get a real sense of how low some of these lakes are. I was looking at Height Marina, where I used to launch when I was a kid, at Powell with my grandpa and them, and it's 106 feet below safe launching level. So it's incredible. And look at Mead. But if you can get on the water, the fishing should be good. And like this water crisis, the least affected reservoirs apparently, are going to be the Mojaves and the Haves. They're always going to, it seems like, unless it gets really bad, those are going to be pretty stable. That's why the fishing's a little bit more, it's better in general. Just, you're able to have, of course, the enhancement at Havasu, but you have stable enough water levels to have cattails and stuff. And I'm not too particular on Mojave. I don't have a lot of, but being at Havasu, there's a lot of backwaters and all kinds of stuff, large, so the fishing, I'm not even talking about that right now with those ones. I'm mainly concerned about the Mead and the Powell and the other reservoirs that are being affected. Like Flaming Gorge, really, you drop 10 feet this time of year. Let's talk about that real quick. I don't know how many of you fish Flaming Gorge, but it's become a pretty good smallmouth fishery. But if you take 10 vertical feet out of it in May and June in that climate, because once you get above, like Powell, May and June is spawning season. Late May or May into early June is spawning season for smallmouth and largemouth. There's probably a few largemouth in there. I mean, I'm just assuming, but there's smallmouth for sure. So that can have an impact. I've seen that have an impact on other fisheries as well that are similar, where you have huge fluctuations of water. So it will be seen how that affects the smallmouth spawn in Flaming Gorge. But these choices and things have ramifications of the fisheries that we love, and hopefully we'll get through this. But and hopefully I'll get through this so I can go fishing again. But I'll talk to you later. Hopefully we'll get some fishing videos. If I'm still not feeling good, I'll probably do some more stuff like this and just keep you up to date. It's kind of interesting stuff because these are reservoirs, my favorite reservoirs to fish, most beautiful reservoirs, the most diverse reservoirs in my opinion with the fish, and just their experiences out, not just fishing, but just to go see the geology and in the animal life and whatnot. These reservoirs in around the Four Corners area, in Nevada and California, Arizona border are have a tremendous nostalgia for me. So I like to talk about them and keep abreast of them. Anyway, talk to you later. Peace.